Hello again, everybody. This is Red, and welcome to my 100th YouTube video episode of Half Century of Collecting Sports Cards. And I was thinking of something, what could I do cool for this 100th episode? And well, I kind of went back to the first cards that I ever owned came from 1972-73 basketball set. And I do have the set, so I thought, well, let's run through the whole set. Now, the first packs I ever got came out of this, not this box, but a 1973 Topps box that I saw at Bernie's grocery store. Packs, this is kind of how it looked. Packs that look just like these. And one of the first packs, I might even been the first pack, I remember getting this specific Roberto Clemente card. Got a lot of playing use, but that was one of the first cards that I ever got. Now, the first cards I ever saw, I had a friend who had just moved to town in like November of 72. I was in second grade, and he had some cards from these 72 packs, but I didn't see him in the store or buy him that year. I was just so excited when I saw him, and I think right away then, man, I want some baseball cards, and that's lasted over 50 years, these cards that I bought. But these cards, these 72, 73, it was in Wheaties boxes that they had this special offer. And the special offer you could send in for is either a sheet of cards or a big pack of 36 cards. I think there might actually been 50 in there. And I've read some things that said there were 50, even though it said 36. My brother has the other bunch of them. These are the exact cards that we got in that pack of 50. There was a Wilt Chamberlain in there that my brother has. These two, Dr. J and Kareem, were not in there. Got later, but we did have that. This is the Jerry West that came. The Willis Reed, Phil Chenier, a couple of big guys. Dave Bing, I think, became my favorite players just getting that card. So today, let's run through the 72-73 Topps basketball set. So they start out, we got the championship series, which was the Knicks and Lakers. Knicks winning game 1. You got the Pearl Monroe on that card. You got game 2, 3, 4, and 5, all of which the Lakers won. You got Happy Hairston on a couple of those. Got Jerry West driving on Walt Frazier on that card. And then fittingly, the one that shows the Laker championship, you've got Wilt on the card, because game 5, even though he was down to the end of his career, scoring just like 14 a game, I think, but that game 5, which shows final game there, he had not only the 24 points it shows there, but he had 29 rebounds in that game as well. So just a big game. And you got your leader cards. Kareem, 3 Hall of Famers there. Kareem Havlicek and Tiny Archibald. They were also the scoring average leaders. Just a little flip-flop, 2-3 in order. And you've got your field goal percentage leaders. All 3 Hall of Famers as well. 2 Hall of Famers on those free throw leaders. All Hall of Famers and your rebounding leaders. Same thing with your assist leaders. And then I've got them in teams, the way I put them back in the day. We're going to start out with who won the championship that 71-72 season, and that was the Los Angeles Lakers. You got Hall of Famers there, Jerry West and Wilt Chamberlain. I'm not sure Gil Goodrich was as well. And a couple good forwards, and Jim McMillan and Happy Hairston. This Laker team was waiting for a championship. Jerry West and was with Elgin Baylor all those years, losing to the Celtics year after year. Then they acquired Chamberlain, thinking he'd be the one that put him over the hump. And you can see that was actually his 4th year with them. And look at that career. 1 year averaging over 50 points a game, over 2,000 rebounds. In a bunch of those years. This year here, he still led the league in rebounds. But they thought he'd be the guy to push them over the top. In that first year, they lost to the Celtics again. The next year, Chamberlain gets hurt, and they end up losing to the Knicks. That was the Willis Reed knee injury year. that Reed played and kind of carried them to a championship. Then the year after that, Lou Alcindor and the Bucks, don't even let them get to the finals because Alcindor just had a dominant year and beat him. Now Alcindor had a big year this year as well. This year as Kareem, but the Lakers beat him and they finally won a championship. It was the 8th time Jerry West had been in a championship series and the first time he won. They happened to lose it the next year as well to the Knicks. And there's some of their reserves. You got Pat Riley in there. He's a Hall of Fame coach. The second place team in the division was the Warriors. And you've got Jeff Mullins, good player. Rick Barry actually didn't play for him that year. He came from the ABA. He was a Hall of Famer. Nate Thurmond is a Hall of Famer. See Rick Barry actually played for the New York Nets in the ABA, who was in the championship. So he was one of those guys, came from the ABA to NBA that year. There you got an in-action card. So love the backs of these 72, 73 cards with that solid bright color. But then you got a few in-action cards mixed in there. Next team was the Supersonics out of Seattle. You got a couple Hall of Famers there, and Lenny Wilkins and Spencer Haywood. Spencer Haywood is another of those guys that came up in the ABA. Yep, started with the Denver team where he scored 30 a game. John Brisker is another one of these ABA guys. He's played all 3 years with Pittsburgh. It was the Pittsburgh Condors, and they actually folded after this season, so all their players kind of dispersed elsewhere, and he ended up signing in the ABA with the Supersonics. Now Brisker, look at those scoring averages. He was quite a player. Almost 30 a game. All right, then you got the rest of the Supersonics. Garfield Hurd was a good player. You got your Houston Rockets here, a couple Hall of Famers there, and 5'9" Calvin Murphy, Jimmy Walker. There's your free throw leader, Jack Marin. You got Rudy Tomjanovich, who became a really good coach. He was a good player as well. Otto Moore. Mike Newland was a pretty good player there off the bench. And you got your Portland Trailblazers. Rick Edelman became a pretty well-known coach. Jeff Petrie was a 20-point-a-game scorer. Sidney Wicks, that was his rookie year. He averaged like 24.5 a game. Yep, that season. Almost 1,000 rebounds. Big year. Your bench, you got another in-action card there. And then you got your Milwaukee Bucks. Some big-time players. Oscar Robertson, towards the end of his career, Hall of Famer, big-time Hall of Famer. Lucius Allen was a good player. Bob Dandridge was a Hall of Famer, power forward. And then you've got Kareem, as he is now known. And then you got your Chicago Bulls. Big sideburns point guard Norm Van Leer, Hall of Fame coach there, Jerry Sloan. Chet Walker was a Hall of Fame player. That's Jimmy McMillan guarding him. You got Bob Love, Tom Borwinkle. And their bench, another Hall of Famer, and look who's guarding Bob Weiss, none other than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Phoenix Suns, Clem Haskins ended up being a Minnesota Gopher coach for a while. You got Hall of Famer Charlie Scott, Hall of Famer Connie Hawkins, and those are a couple ABA guys too. Let's see here, we got Connie Hawkins. First couple years were in the ABA with that Pittsburgh Piper. They moved to the Minnesota Piper just for a year. He scored 30 points a game. Then they moved back. Charlie Scott, that was actually that season, averaged 34.6 points a game for the Virginia Squires, teammate of Dr. J. All right, then you got their bench. Gus Johnson's a Hall of Famer. You got your Detroit Pistons. Dave Bing, Hall of Famer, one of the best 50 players in the NBA of all time. Bob Lanier, Hall of Famer. And their bench. And then your Boston Celtics. after their glory years, but still good. You got a Hall of Famer there in JoJo White, another one in John Havlicek, another one in Dave Collins, and then Paul Silas was a great rebounder. I think he had just come over from Phoenix there. Don Chaney was a good player. Got a Hall of Fame coach, Don Nelson. Tom Sanders goes back to playing with Bill Russell, old-timer. And then you got your New York Knicks, who actually didn't win the division, behind the Celtics here, but they ended up going to the finals, and those are, their 5 starters and their first guy off the bench. All 6 of those guys are Hall of Famers. So you're probably best backcourt duo of the day, Walt Frazier and Earl Monroe, both Hall of Famers. Got Senator Bill Bradley, Hall of Famer. Dave DeBusschere, who pitched for the White Sox, was a Hall of Fame basketball player, and Ohio State. It's Jerry Lucas, Hall of Famer. Dick Barnett, longer career, Hall of Famer. Then you got a Hall of Fame coach, Phil Jackson. And another Hall of Famer who he was hurt that year, most of that year, Willis Reed. So you got 8 Hall of Famers between coaches and players on that New York Knicks team. And you got your 76ers, Hal Greer, Hall of Famer. Good coach there, and Kevin Lockery. Fred Carter was a good player. And a little bit of their bench. Got your some Buffalo Braves. Walt Hazzard became Abdul Rahman. Freddie Hilton. Randy Smith was a real good player for a while. You got some all-star years. You got Elmore Smith. And then you got rest of your Braves. You got your Baltimore Bullets going into Washington. You got Archie Clark was a 20-point-a-game all-star out of the University of Minnesota. You got Phil Chenier. 2 Hall of Famers there that played together a long time. Elvin Hayes, this is his first year with the Bullets, came from Houston, where he also played in college. You got Wes Unseld, Stan Love. Bench. Then you got your Atlanta Hawks. There's some Hall of Famers, 3 of them. Pete Maravich, Lou Hudson, their ex-Gopher, and Walt Bellamy, Indiana guy. Their bench. And then you got your coming from the Kansas City Royals this year, moving to Cincinnati Royals, I should say, moving to Kansas City, Omaha as the Kings. Later would be going to Sacramento, but at this time they're in Kansas City half their games and Omaha half their games, and that's Tiny Archibald, who this 72-73 season, when these cards came out, led the league in scoring and assists. And he's a Hall of Famer. A lot of Hall of Famers in this set. More of their players. You get your Cleveland Cavaliers, no Hall of Famers. But Butch Beard, Austin Carr out of Notre Dame. A couple good players. And that's it. I guess the Cavaliers were a last place team. Then you got the all-star cards. First teamers, you got Walt Frazier and Jerry West as your guards. Havlicek and Spencer Haywood as your forwards. And Kareem as your center, fittingly with him and Wilt Chamberlain on the same card. Pretty cool. Your second team, Tiny Archibald, Archie Clark, Billy Cunningham, who's got a card, played that year with the 76ers. His card's in the ABA. And then you got Wilt and Bob Love. Jerry West on that card. All right, now they moved over to the ABA for the rest of the cards. You got your ABA championship was between the Pacers and Indiana Pacers and the New York Nets. So before they became the New Jersey Nets, before they became the Brooklyn Nets, they were the New York Nets, played in Long Island. That's Billy Cunningham. And the Pacers won that series in 6 games. Champion Legends. There's Darnell Hillman taking that shot. Then you got your scoring leaders. 3 Hall of Famers again on there. Charlie Scott, Rick Barry, and Dan Issel. Your 2-point percentage leaders, led by Hall of Famer Artis Gilmore. They're probably almost all dunks at 7-2. You got your 3-point. That's where the 3-point shot first began, was in the old ABA. 3-point leaders. Your free throw leaders, underhand Rick Barry. Rebound leaders, also rookie Artis Gilmore. Look who's second, rookie 6'6", forward Julius Erving. And then your assist leaders, there's Larry Brown. He doesn't have a card in that set, but he was second in assists in the league. Good long-time coach. So in order of finish in the West, you got the Utah Stars, who were not in the finals, but they did win regular season. You got a Hall of Famer there in Zelmo Beatty. Ron Boone and Willie Wise were good players. Then you got your champion ABA team, the Indiana Pacers. One of the 4 ABA teams that made it to the NBA at the merger. George McGinnis' rookie year. He's a Hall of Famer. Kind of one of the faces of the ABA, and Mel Daniels is a Hall of Famer. There's Darnell Hillman, a guy who, I think it says on his card, that great leaper with the ability to touch the top of the backboard. Cleared the 7-foot mark in high school, jump as a freshman. Big time jumper, he was 6'9" to boot. Then you got the Dallas Chaparrals. Steve Jones was a good player. Bob Licky was a pretty good player. You got the Carolina Cougars. Matt Kelvin was a good point guard for that team. Joe Caldwell. There's your Billy Cunningham card, who hadn't played for them yet, but was coming over from the NBA. Mike Lewis. And then you got a team that was a new team this season in 72-73, the San Diego Conquistadors. So ABA had a lot of moving parts. You had moving out that year was Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh Condors. And then it was the Miami Floridans was the other team that folded. But then you had the one new team in the Conquistadors. We got quite a few cards. You got the Kentucky Colonels. Got a Hall of Famer there in Louis Dampier. Another one in Dan Issel. Another one in Artis Gilmore. 3 Hall of Famers. And then probably a college Hall of Famer, I'm guessing, out of Purdue. Had a great college career. Rick Mount. Decent pro career as well. And then your Virginia Squires with Dr. J's rookie. You got both those 2 Dr. J's. He was obviously a Hall of Famer and probably was the face of the ABA. And then your team that was in the finals here, the New York Nets. Bill Melchione. They were played in Long Island, New York. They'd started, I guess, in New Jersey, and then they went back to New Jersey later. But they so they were one of the teams that made it to the NBA, to the merger. But unlike the other 3 teams, they had a competitor in the New York Knicks in town. So they had to pay $4.3 million to be allowed to stay in New York or New Jersey. I think it was New York. And so how they raised their $4.3 million was they sold Julius Erving, who they had at the time. He led them to the ABA title, but they sold him to the Philadelphia 76ers for $4.3 million, and that is how they paid the Knicks and got to be in the league. Then you got a team that became the Denver Nuggets, which they are today. So this is one of the teams that survived. They were the Denver Rockets at the time. They changed their name to the Nuggets in anticipation that they'd be getting into the NBA, and they knew there was already the Houston Rockets, and that's why these cards say Denver, whereas the other Rockets cards said Houston on them. Ralph Simpson was a good player. They actually started as the Denver Larks, which was the state bird. But then I think that guy had money troubles, and so they got sold to a trucking company that was called something Rocket Trucking. So that's how they became the Rockets, out of the name of the owner's team. And then the last team here, you've got the Memphis Tams, team that didn't make it to the NBA. And you ask, what's a TAM? I don't really know if I know any of their players. But a TAM is an acronym for Tennessee, Arkansas, Mississippi, for TAM. They played in games in all of those states, and so that's what they called them. That almost there looks like Will Ferrell. I remember he did play in the, I think it was in the ABA in that movie, wasn't it? Maybe that's how he got in. I don't know, maybe it doesn't look like him. Kind of does. And your resident gym teacher, George Lehman. Last card. Then you got your All-Stars. Bill Melchione is a first-teamer with Donnie Freeman, Rick Barry, Dan Issel, Artis Gilmore. So 3 big-timers there. There's the Rick Barry shooting his underhand free throws. He shot at about a 90% clip for his career. Your second-teamers, Charlie Scott, Ralph Simpson, the Doctor, Willie Wise, and Zelmo Beatty. And your 2 checklist cards. So thanks for hanging in there. It's a longer video, I know, but kind of fun to go through my favorite basketball set of all time, the 1972-73 Topps set. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys again next time.